Hey everybody, welcome to Luxury Fridays. We have an early morning edition. Hope you're doing well. Michael LaFido here. Just a couple reminders, please leave us any questions in the comments. So if you have a question and you're watching this live, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, please leave us a comment or question, and we'll try to get to all those today. Otherwise, you can always shoot me an email, Michael at Marketing Luxury Group, Michael at Marketing Luxury Group, if you're watching this replay. Today, we have a lot of things we want to cover today. Again, as each Friday, you can always ask me anything. So whether you're a consumer, someone that owns a home and you're thinking about selling, or you're thinking about buying a house, you can certainly ask us questions. This Luxury Friday was geared towards real estate professionals. However, welcome comments from public that are non-real estate agents. We welcome those. So again, each Friday, we typically try to come to you at 11 a.m. Central, but we're down at a baseball tournament. It's actually raining outside, so the games got delayed, but that's why we came to you at a unique time today. We have really four big topics I want to cover today, and I'll give you a quick brief overview of those. Number one, in the month of June, there were more contracts canceled on real estate transactions. It's been the highest since the start of the pandemic. In March, April of 2020, when the uncertainty of what's going on, there were a lot of contracts canceled. Well, just last month was the most amount of contracts canceled. So we're going to talk about that. Number two, we're going to talk about 3 tips when it comes to location, location, location. You've heard about that a lot probably when you're dealing with real estate. I have a t-shirt that is on our Lux brand store that we sell. And literally on the shirt, it just says that location, location, location. And number 3 is we're going to talk about how to create urgency in a cooling market. You know, when it's a hot seller's market, there's urgency. Buyers line up, people make offers sight unseen. But in a lot of markets, things are slowing down a little bit, called a cooling market, making a shift from what we call a seller's market to a balanced market to perhaps a buyer's market in some areas. So we're going to talk about how to create urgency. And the fourth thing, we're going to talk about 6 tips when it comes to location, location, location. I am using my mobile phone on this live stream. First time I'm doing it on our Luxury Friday. So bear with me if I don't perhaps get to your question as quick. The layout of my my phone with this app is a little bit different than on the desktop. So with that being said, happy Friday, everybody. Here we are mid-July at this time of this stream, and we are definitely seeing things cool off a little bit in the real estate market. However, there's still the one thing in most markets that we have going for us is there's still a shortage of inventory. I don't care if it's the day after Thanksgiving, they call that Black Friday, and Best Buy puts a limited number of 70-inch TVs on sale. Limited supply drives up demand. So we still have a limited supply. So although we have a lot of downward pressure, interest rates are high, uncertainty with inflation, the inflation numbers came out 9.1%. That's the highest in 40 years. There's a lot of downward pressure. So that's what we're going to talk about here with the first topic today. But let me just look to see about comments. All right. So I don't see any comments there. So if you guys have a question, feel free to post it, and I'll try to get to it here. Again, dealing with a little bit of a different layout. So let's talk number one. Number one, I mentioned it earlier. Why were there so many contracts? Almost 60,000 real estate contracts canceled in the month of June, which is the highest since the start of the pandemic. There's a lot of various reasons to that. Number one is uncertainty. In other words, the buyers are uncertain of what the economy is going to do. Are they paying? Number two is, are they paying too much? Right? There's a lot of people that overpaid for homes. They put the appraisal gap contingency, or they waive the appraisal. There's a lot of buyers in the last year and a half that were creative, and perhaps they overpaid, and there's a lot of buyers out there that active buyers out there that don't want to do that. So that's maybe the second reason that there were so many contract cancellations last month. The third, interest rates have gone up, right? So literally a year ago, interest rates were around 3%. Today, they're just under 6. But again, interest rates have gone up, and there's just a lot of uncertainty out there. So anyways, I just wanted to share that with you. So 14.9% of all contracts in the month of June were canceled. That's almost 60,000. So what, as a seller, can you do to minimize that? So again, as a seller in a really hot market and in a seller's market, you can call the shots a lot, right? You can name your terms, a lot of times your price, the closing date, as is. You can say, I'll sell it, but it's got to be as is. Mr. Buyer, you have to waive the appraisal gap. But as a seller, you have to be more flexible in a cooling market. As a seller, you have to, you almost have to give the buyer what they want in a shifting market. So I share that with you because if you are selling a home, don't scare away the buyer by being rigid and drawing a line in the sand in a shifting or cooling market. You have to be more flexible. Maybe there's home inspection items that you really don't want to fix or give a credit. Have open communication. Hopefully your real estate agent has open communication with the other side. You might be willing to give a little bit more to help prevent the contract from canceling. So as a seller, that's what you can do. A seller, you can be a little bit more, do some more due diligence on their financing, making sure they're putting down a decent amount. As I'm streaming this right now, I have a house we just put on the market this week. We have 3 offers. One of them is only putting 5% down. The other is putting 15% down. The other is putting 25% down. They're all above asking price. So we are looking at all the terms to help minimize future turbulence of a canceled contract. Okay, as a buyer, just do your due diligence, right? There's an old, newer saying I'm hearing out there a lot: marry the house, date the rate, date the interest rate, right? Marry the house. Find the house of your dreams that checks off most of the boxes. And don't worry and focus so much about interest rate, okay? So that's, yes, great question. Those stats are nationwide, that 14.9% of deals canceling. That's according to Redfin. Redfin came out the data this week. But yes, that's nationwide. Great question. Okay, so there's things as a seller you can do to prevent your deal falling south, and there's some things as a buyer you can prevent as well. Do your due diligence. Don't buy on emotion, right? Don't buy on emotion. So some really good good tips there. So I appreciate it. Again, those of you that are just tuning in, my name is Michael Lafito. You're watching a live stream called Luxury Fridays. We come to you each Friday. You can go to luxuryfridays.com. For more information, but Luxury Fridays, and we answer questions if you're a consumer watching or if you're a real estate agent, a broker owner. This is the right live stream for you. Although we focus on luxury, we cover all things real estate. Again, my name is Michael Lafito. Thank you for tuning in. So the first thing we talked about was 14.9% of contracts canceled in June. So there are some things as a buyer you can do to prevent that happening. And definitely as a seller. As a buyer, remember, you marry the house, you date the interest rate. Again, do your due diligence, buy on logic, not on emotion. And as a seller, you got to be more flexible in this market. Okay, number 2, we're going to talk about location. I almost wore my t-shirt today, but if you guys go to luxuryspecialistgear.com, you'll see a lot of swag there. And one of our most popular t-shirts or hoodies is the simple location. I actually brought it to me on the sports tournament. Whenever I wear that, just when I'm at my kid's baseball game or something like that, I have people that come up to me that know I'm in real estate, say that's a great shirt, or people that don't know I'm in real estate, and they say, let me guess, you're in real estate. So location. So I'm going to talk about right now the 3 tips for buyers when determining if a home is in a good location or if it's a good fit for you. So number 1 is the location. When I talk about location, we're not just talking about the proximity of, close to work, right? So we're going to talk about really 6 things to consider in location here in a minute. But when you're looking at a specific home, look at the location of the home, okay? What's next to it? What's across the street? What's behind it? Number 2, you don't want to buy the biggest home in the neighborhood, because in a shifting and a cooling market, a lot of times those are the most difficult homes to sell. If anything, you want to buy a home that isn't the highest priced or the largest home in the neighborhood, but mid-tier, and you let some of those bigger homes pull you up. And the third tip for a buyer today, so again, number 1 is location. You really need to think about location. Don't buy on emotion. I'll never forget when my wife and I, I'll never forget when my wife and I were looking at homes years ago. We still drive by this one house we almost bought. It's on my way to my father's house, and I backed up to a gas station, and I almost pulled the trigger on it because it was a great deal, and I'm so thankful I didn't. But location, 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 right? So that's tip number 1 for a buyer when you're looking at a home. You're not sure what are some factors to consider. My tip number 1 is location. Number 2 is you don't want to be the biggest home in that street, in that neighborhood. And number 3, you definitely want to use a real estate agent. There's a lot of consumers, a lot of buyers that did not use a real estate agent over the last couple of years, or they weren't loyal to a real estate agent. They didn't have a relationship, or they just called the agents that represented the house. They called it the listing agents, and those agents don't always have your best interest in mind. They show you the comparables that justify the asking price. They don't show you all the comparables. I'm working with a multi-million-dollar buyer right now, and he looked at a $4.9 million home previous to me. We went back and looked at that house. I shared with him there hasn't been a house in that neighborhood in the last 10 years that has sold above 2.5 million. Matter of fact, the highest sale in that neighborhood in the last 5 years was 1.7 million. And I told him this house isn't the largest necessarily in the neighborhood, but they're asking 4.9, and you want to sink another million into it. And there hasn't been a sale above 1.7 in the last 5 years. That listing agent never shared that with him when he saw it without me. Again, so share all the data. A buyer's agent will help you make a sound decision. All right, so that's tip number. So we've covered so far why on this live stream, Michael LaFido here, we've covered why there were so many contracts that canceled in June and what you can do to prevent them. Number 2, we covered 3 tips for future buyers thinking about buying a home. 3 tips, right? Location, don't buy the biggest home, and use an agent that has your best interest in mind, and not a salesperson, but a consultant, an advisor, a trusted expert. All right, number 3, we're going to talk about how can you create urgency? How can you create urgency in a cooling market? So as a seller, if you're thinking of selling or you know somebody that's selling, you have one time to make a first impression. So that's number 1. You got to make great first impressions. So do the things necessary to stand out. Freshly painted, curb appeal, making sure you get rid of sights and smells. I've covered previously talking about smells. If you have dogs, you have pets, if you have ethnic food, if I have one client, I presume they smoke a lot of marijuana in the house because we have feedback saying the house smells like marijuana. Again, to them, they might not smell it or they don't mind the smell, but you can turn off potential buyers, whether it be pet smells, marijuana smells, whatever. So again, how do you create urgency? I got off topic. The smells of the house is one thing that can turn off urgency. But as a seller, how can you create urgency? Number 1, you can stack showings. When I say stack showings, we just put a home on the market this week. My client's a little bit older. He's a little overwhelmed. We had, I think, 8 showing requests on day 1. So what we did, and he only accepted 2, and he declined 6 of those showings. So I reminded him, a buyer wants to see a house, or in this case, your house, when it's convenient to them, not around your schedule. So when you're selling, you have to be flexible. Buyers want to see a home when it's convenient to them on their schedule or the agent's schedule versus yours. So that was something that I reminded my client, but even with that, he was overwhelmed. So I said, I quickly put together a contingency, a backup plan. And so what we said is you already accepted a 5:15 showing and a 6 p.m. showing. So how about this? I'm going to allow showing between 5 and 7 tonight. We're going to call back all 6 people that we declined and said, sorry, we're a little overwhelmed. There's a lot of interest on this house. If you want to see it tonight, let's see it between 5 and 7. I'll have a team member at the house as well. And if Mr. Buyer's agent, you're not available, or Mrs. Buyer's agent, that's okay. We'll, of course, honor your agency agreement with your client, but please send them. Just have them, tell, in this case, a guy on our team, tell him that, hey, we already spoke with Mike. We're working with an agent. So it wasn't a open house to the public. It was a private open house. That created urgency because other couples were walking through the home and then they noticed, holy cow, this is a hot property. There's 4 other people here. There's 6 other people. So we ended up getting 3 offers from that technique. So that's how you can create urgency, is you limit showings to a small window. Now that's easy to do when you come out the gate, right? Because it's a hot property, it's new. But what if your home's been on the market and you're not getting a lot of showings? How do you create urgency? That's a lot more difficult, and we'll cover that next week or the following week on Luxury Friday. So the third thing is, how do you create urgency right off the bat? You might limit showings to certain windows of the day so that there'll be natural overlapping. It's no different than if you go to an open house and you're looking and there's a lot of people at that open house and you hear some positive feedback, like, oh, honey, this is a great house. We should let's make an offer. It creates urgency, and that's how you can create urgency in the open market in the non-open house way. So that's number 3. And number 4, we're going to talk about the last tip for today. We're going to talk about location, location, location. 6 tips when determining or going a little bit deeper on what do we mean by location, location, location. Here are 6 tips. So number 1, when we talk about location, 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 we're talking about what is on either side of the house. So if you're looking at a house that you're thinking about buying, is there an eyesore on one side? And don't say, well, or a tear down. A tear down is a dilapidated house. It's definitely going to be torn down. You don't want to make that assumption. I'm selling a house right now for 1.8 million, and the house to the left of it is a tear down. But it might be 5 to 10 years. So when you go to buy a home, don't make the assumption, oh, it's only going to be there a year, or it's going to be torn down immediately. It could be there 5 to 10 to 20 years. And so you consider that, because for resale purposes, that's probably hurting that seller and it would hurt you as well. So location, what's next to you, either side, what's across the street, what are you looking at, what's behind you? These are all factors when you talk about location, location, location. Number 2, schools. Do you have good schools, good school ratings? Now, during the COVID days, during pandemic, a lot of people are homeschooling. A lot of people are sending more private than public schools. So I'm seeing in my market, in the Chicagoland market, homes that traditionally would sit longer, they've sold, even though the schools aren't as good, because people are doing more homeschooling or sending private. But schools are important. And proximity to schools, how close the house is to schools, is important as well. Number 3, public transportation. Is it close to the train or the buses or highways? So that's really important to consider. Okay, public transportation or just proximity to transportation. Number 4 is hospitals. Is there good, if someone gets sick in the middle of the night, are you close to a hospital? Are you close to urgent care? Those are some things that are a factor as far as when it comes to location in a good way. Parks, walking paths, trails, those are other. That's the 5th tip that I have for you today is, from a, hey, recreational standpoint, are there some things in that area that are appealing? And number 6, I mentioned this earlier today when I talked about tips for buyers, for future buyers. Don't buy the largest home in the neighborhood. Well, location, location, location as well. What I mean by that is you don't want to be next to that eyesore, so to speak, but you also, for resale, you want to look at what are some of the upper price point homes in this neighborhood going for, and what are some of the lower price point. And you want to kind of be in that mid-tier price point. You don't want to be the highest priced home in a neighborhood from a location standpoint. So I hope this was helpful to you to kind of review. We gave 4 tips, and that's what we're going to be doing on future live streams as well. We might bring in guests, and we'll definitely have perhaps a set agenda on a couple talking points. And we have a dedicated time that I'm going to open up for right now called AMA, or Ask Me Anything. AMA, Ask Me Anything. Okay, so you guys are watching Luxury Fridays here. Again, you guys can go to luxuryfridays.com. We typically update that top link with when the next live stream is going to be. And again, we have tons of free resources at joinluxgroup.com. Join Lux Group. So if you're an agent watching this and you want to know what's it all about, or what Michael LaFido and his team brings to the table, you can go to joinluxgroup.com. And if you're a consumer watching this, feel free to go to our website. Our website is thelafitoteam.com, the LaFido Team, or luxchicagolandhomes.com. We did just put up a billboard this week. We're excited about that. We're already getting some great feedback. It's on Roosevelt Road, just west of Winfield Road there in Wheaton. We got a billboard up. We're excited about that. All right. Any questions? Let me see here. Do we have any any questions? You guys, I'm gonna copy this. If you want, let me see how I type in a comment. You guys type in your comments. If you have, you could ask me anything. We call it AMA, Ask Me Anything. Anybody? Good questions coming up? Let me see here. Can I type in a comment? Post a comment. Yes. All right. I just posted in the chat feature. That's a link if you want to come on to our show. You can literally, I can bring you on video camera. Otherwise, type in your comments in whether you're watching this on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Type in your comments. Again, we covered some 4 really big tips right now. Here we are mid-July. You know, if your home is on the market and you're trying to determine, do I take it off? School's coming up, or summer's midsummer right now. It hasn't sold. Should I keep it on the market? Should I take it off? That's a great question as well. I'm all about, like Wayne Gretzky, the great one, once says, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Supply and demand. I'm all about keeping the home on the market, even in a cooling market, because you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. You miss 100% of the potential buyers if your home isn't even on the market and they don't know about it. All right. Any questions on anything? Any questions? Please ask them for us. Please ask them to me. What questions do you guys have? Again, and if you want to come on, screen, just let me know. All right. So again, this has been a Luxury Fridays here. My name is Michael LaFido. We do this every Friday. It's a live stream. We've been producing a lot of 1-minute tips as well, 1-minute real estate tips. Again, check us out on Instagram. You can Real Michael LaFido on Instagram, or Luxury Listing Specialist, or Real Michael LaFido, as well as we're now on TikTok. Of course, we're on Facebook and LinkedIn, and we want to answer any questions, all things real estate, whether you're a buyer, whether you're a seller, whether you're an agent, you have a question about a buyer, you're working with the seller, or as a agent or a seller, if you have a home that's on the market and it's not getting showings, not getting feedback, this would also be the platform where you can ask us to do what's called a fresh eyes analysis, almost like a SWOT analysis: strength, weakness, opportunity, threat, a SWOT analysis, where we literally will pull up on the screen your home and give you some real live feedback, tips, and suggestions. We call that a SWOT analysis, or a fresh eyes analysis. We'd be happy to do that as well. And yeah, so, and any other questions? Any questions, folks? Please type them in. Please type them in. I'll give you another minute or so. Otherwise, we'll come to you guys next week, next Friday. I'll be coming back. I'll be traveling back next Friday. We have, actually, no, what do we got next Friday? Actually, next week, I'll be in California. My friend Brent Gove has got a big event just outside of Sacramento. It's at a country club, and we have over 200 agents registered. We're really excited about that. We have over 200 agents registered. And literally, I'm presenting from 10 to 2 to real estate agents on breaking into and selling luxury real estate. We're really excited about that. That's going to be next week. We're at a country club outside of Sacramento. Shoot me a note if you guys want more information on that. And again, we have a busy upcoming month. We're speaking at the NAREB conference, the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. They're celebrating their 75th year anniversary, NAREB, which I'm so honored to be presenting at that. Shantae invited us. I'm thankful for that. And then the end of August, we're presenting back in Florida. Again, we have courses approved for continuing education in Florida, Texas, Georgia. We're going to get hopefully approved here in Illinois shortly, and other states. Any questions whatsoever? You guys have been great. If not, then what I'll do is we'll sign off for this week. Again, next week we'll have another Luxury Fridays. You guys can go to luxuryfridays.com, luxuryfridays.com, to see when we're speaking next. You guys can also check out some free resources by going to joinluxgroup.com. All right. So thank you guys so much. You guys make it a great Friday, make it a great weekend. I appreciate you guys, appreciate you joining us today. And we'll see you guys next week on another episode of Luxury Fridays. Keep raising the bar, guys. The other thing is turn off the news. They want to divide you. They don't want to unify us. So stay positive, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week on another episode of Luxury Fridays. Michael LaFido, make it a great Friday. Take care.